Good morning, my friends. God bless you. Thank you for coming to another Living Hope Today study. This morning we find ourselves in Numbers chapter 7, and I must tell you, this is an amazingly long chapter, 89 verses. We're not going to read it all verse by verse today, but we don't have to because one thing happens 12 times. It's described in the same way 12 times. I'll show you that in a minute. But it ends with an amazing change in how Moses is able to speak with God. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's the beginning. When Moses finished setting up the tabernacle, he anointed it and consecrated it and all its furnishings. He also anointed and consecrated the altar and all its utensils. So now we're talking about the tabernacle. We've talked about how to move it. But here we see Moses is consecrating it to the Lord's purpose through anointing it. Okay. Then the leaders of Israel, the heads of families who were the tribal leaders in charge of those who were counted, what do? They make offerings. Okay, so now we're going to have 12 tribes bring offerings in order to participate in the anointing and consecrating of the tabernacle. They brought as their gifts before the Lord 6 covered carts and 12 oxen, an ox from each leader, and a cart from every 2. These were presented before the tabernacle. The Lord said to Moses, okay, so here we go again. God is speaking here. It's not Moses' idea, it's God's. Accept these from them, that they may be used in the work at the tent of meeting. Give them to the Levites as each man's work requires. So now God is providing the way to transport the ark on the carts using these oxen. So Moses took the carts and oxen and gave them to the Levites. He gave 2 carts and 4 oxen to the Gershonites as their work required. And he gave 4 carts and 8 oxen to the Merarites as their work required. They were all under the direction of Ithamar, son of Aaron, the priest. Okay, so those 2 tribes, the Gershonites and the Merarites, they get the carts and the oxen, okay, because they're moving the gear, basically, is probably the way to say it. Here we see, though, but Moses did not give any to the Kohathites, because they were to carry on their shoulders. Remember, all these items in the tabernacle have loops, rings for poles to go through them so that these objects can be carried. They were to carry on their shoulders the holy things for which they were responsible. So that's how we're going to move it. But before we move it, what do? Well, when the altar was anointed, the leaders brought their offerings for its dedication and presented them before the altar. So we have 12 tribes represented bringing their offerings to dedicate the tabernacle. For the Lord had said to Moses, again, this is God speaking, each day one leader is to bring his offering for the dedication of the altar. So the Lord is very intentional here. He wants to make sure his tribes are acknowledging him and bringing what they're required to bring to get this tabernacle anointed and consecrated and pleasing to the Lord. So the one who brought his offering on the first day was Nahshon, son of Amminadab, of the tribe of Judah. Okay, time out. Pay attention to what happens next, because the next few verses are the verses that will get repeated over and over again in this chapter. We'll go through it once, and then you can times it times 11 as we go through the rest. All right? So here's the offering from the tribe of Judah. Okay, his offering was 1 silver plate weighing 130 shekels and 1 silver sprinkling bowl weighing 70 shekels, and both according to the sanctuary shekel, each filled with fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering, 1 gold dish weighing 10 shekels filled with incense, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 1 male lamb, a year old for a burnt offering, 1 male goat for a sin offering, 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats, 5 male lambs, a year old to be sacrificed as a fellowship offering. This was the offering of Nahshon, son of Amminadab. All right, so now we're going to just look at that times 11. Well, really, let's just start at the beginning again. Nahshon for Judah, verses 13 to 17. All those items are given on the first day. Second day, excuse me, Nathaniel of Issachar, he gives. Then Eliab for Zebulun, Eliezer for Reuben, Shalumiel for Simeon, Eliasaph, maybe that's it, for Gad. Okay, those are the first 6 days. This happens once a day, one tribe per day. Elishama for Ephraim was 7th. Gamaliel for Manasseh was 8th. Abidan for Benjamin was 9th. Then you have Ahiezer for Dan, and Pagiel for Asher, and Ahira for Naphtali. Now, the order of these 12, as they offer these same things one day at a time over a 12-day period. Let me take you back to that diagram we made before that shows you how the tribes were arranged around the tabernacle. You remember they're going to travel in a certain order. Well, the order of their travel is the exact order that these tribes give their offerings in. So Judah's on day 1, then Issachar, then Zebulun, then Reuben and Simeon and Gad and Ephraim. Well, the Levites take off in there too when they actually travel. Then Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. This is the exact same order that we're given in terms of the travel. Now they're ordered that way to give their offerings. So what happens after that? Well, verse 84. We skipped quite a few verses. If you want to read them word for word, help yourself. I did, but I told you basically what's in there. In 784, it says, "These were the offerings of the Israelite leaders for the dedication of the altar when it was anointed. 12 silver plates." So here's the summary. Everybody gave a silver plate, so now there's 12. 12 silver plates, 12 silver sprinkling bowls, 12 gold dishes. Each silver plate weighed 130 shekels, each sprinkling bowl 70 shekels. Notice how the text reiterates, we've heard it 12 times, so this is the 13th time we're told about these items. Altogether, the silver dishes weighed 2,400 shekels according to the sanctuary shekel. The 12 gold dishes filled with incense weighed 10 shekels each. According to the sanctuary shekel, altogether the gold dishes weighed 120 shekels. So we just see the itemized list recounted after all 12 have donated or offered, I probably should say. The 12 gold dishes filled with incense weighed 10 shekels each. According to the sanctuary shekel, altogether the gold dishes weighed 120 shekels. The total number of animals for the burnt offering came to 12 young bulls, 12 rams, and 12 male lambs a year old, together with their grain offering. 12 male goats were used for the sin offering. Again, God is preparing to move his people. He's bringing all the items he wants in the order he wants them, so that when things are dedicated, consecrated, and eventually move, it's exactly like he wants it. The total number of animals for the sacrifice of the fellowship offering came to 24 oxen, 60 rams, 60 male goats, 60 male lambs a year old. So everybody obeyed, everybody gave what the Lord had commanded. These were the offerings for the dedication of the altar after it was anointed. All right? Well, we could just say it ends there. That's enough. We've had all this repetition. But now something amazing happens. You remember where Moses has been meeting with the Lord, right? He's been meeting with the Lord on the top of Mount Sinai, right? He's issued the 10 Commandments there. There are many discussions and instructions that he receives from the Lord on Mount Sinai. The people are down below, unable to even touch the mountain, as God's presence is so amazing that they're afraid to get close. All right, watch this. You get to the end of chapter 7. When Moses entered the tent of meeting to speak with the Lord. All right, just remember now, it's been anointed, it's been consecrated, it's been dedicated, it's been initiated exactly as God has required it. So now Moses enters. He heard the voice speaking to him. The voice? Who's that? That's the Lord himself. Now the Lord is willing to bring his presence into the tabernacle, into the Holy of Holies. And look where it says he is, from between the two cherubim above the anointment cover on the ark. You remember how the ark was constructed with the two cherubim, one on each end? From on top of that ark, between those two cherubim, the Lord's voice is now speaking. So now we see God's presence, God's voice, God's instruction coming right from the tabernacle that God designed. Now he's there speaking to them from the tent of meeting above the Ark of the Covenant. God has now joined his people. Now, we've watched obedience. We've watched them comply in so many ways. There's a few more chapters before we actually move out in terms of moving this whole group to a new location. But in the end, just see that God has tremendous order, tremendous inventory of what he wants, how he wants it, what order he wants it. And now his presence dwells with them in the tabernacle. Amazing. We'll pick it up there next time, church. God bless you. Serve him well.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus.